This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your Post Match Raw, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. For the second time this season, I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their immediate reactions to Liverpool 2, Brentford 0 in the Premier League from Anfield are Dave Hendrick and Karl Matchett. Nice to have you both along, gents. Dave, I will take a season of comparatively workmanlike 2-0 wins, peppered with little moments of brilliance and the occasional wince. I mean, if that's the pattern, I'm okay with it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, 2 games, 2 clean sheets. It took us 9 Premier League games and 12 games in all competitions to get to 2 clean sheets. Last season, we have only allowed 0.8 XG against across the 2 games, which is very, very good. And we're looking like things are starting to develop as we attack, a lot more defined patterns of play, a lot more purpose in some of our play. We're still struggling a lot to progress the ball centrally. It's still too much wide build-up for what we saw this man want from his team with Feyenoord, but that will come in time as well. I thought we had some absolutely outstanding performances today. I just think when Ibu is on it, the only centre-back that he has to nod to is the fella next to him. Right. I thought Ibu was absolutely stunning today. Both ends of the pitch, like, so dominant in the air. He had a couple of chances at the other end. He draws defenders on set pieces as well, and hopefully that's something we can take advantage of across the season. And the fella playing left wing, who I think is probably, other than Darwin, Diaz has probably been the biggest source of frustration for the majority of the fan base over the last 18 months or so. I thought he was brilliant today. Not just the goal, not just the assist, the dropping in, picking the ball up, beating a man, feeding the right pass, moving again, picking it up, and just constantly buzzing about, getting involved in build-up play, getting involved in creativity, and also offering that outlet, that one who can get the ball and carry it 30, 40 yards for you, draw defenders in, win cheap free kicks, and just allow us, whenever there is pressure, to have a bit of an outlet that we can give it to, knowing that worst case scenario here is he wins a free kick and we can just slow things down a little bit. But very much in favour of what we've seen from the Reds this season, and long may it continue.
Karl, lots of lovely things, as Dave alludes to, looking like the same sort of Dom Szoboszlai as we saw at the early part of last season. McAllister doing bits, Gravenberch on the ball, progressively doing bits, but will continue, I think, to divide opinion in terms of the rest of his game there until it develops, if it develops. Diaz, Jota buzzing about as well, and Mo Salah looking like the fella that we were hoping we were seeing pre-season, which is the very peak sort of Salah in terms of delivering those numbers. And that solid defence, always nice to see. There will be eyebrows raised as they see Trent wandering round in the upper left-hand area of the pitch with no apparent intent to return to his defensive duties anytime soon. These eyebrows will continue to be raised. But as Dave has kind of mentioned, we're very, very much still in the very early stages of Arne Slot's Liverpool. So there will be, regardless of anything else, teething troubles for sure. And if we can rely on the fact that the quality of our players will not be in any way impaired by the management, but rather possibly even enhanced in places by our new manager and our new coaching, well, it's all good.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. First of all, a long overdue hello to you, since I haven't spoken to you since last season.
That's a good point.
I think first half, probably there was still plenty of sloppiness where you could say, well, there's some improvement to come. I think we are so used to, I remember myself being used, let's say, going into the final 20 minutes of match and still being like fairly stressed. So the first couple of games of this season is like quite a big departure from that. I know stylistically it's not that much of a change, and positionally where most of the players are, there's lots of familiarity and all the rest of it, but the actual development of matches, I think, has been quite a bit different so far, even though we're very, very early on. There were a lot of points last year when we were thinking or talking to ourselves or talking on Raw and, you know, just generally around matches. It would just be really nice where you could have a stress-free weekend where the game's wrapped up beforehand. It's not necessarily a thriller, but we just do the job needed, get the points. Nobody has to overexert themselves. And maybe it's really easy to either forget or overlook when it happens so often that not conceding the first goal lends itself to that happening quite a bit. So it's a nice start in that regard, particularly.
Yeah, well put. The level of relaxation I think I was feeling was only impaired by the constant doom-mongering of Jamie Carragher in relation to how threatening Brentford actually were, as opposed to the reality of what we were seeing in front of us. And yes, there were a couple of times I think where we did invite them on a little bit too much for my liking, where you'd like the fellas to have put a foot in a bit earlier. But there were also moments of real impressive defensive work as well, led by the aforementioned Ibu Konate for sure. We'll get straight into our formula here, lads, for this one, because I'd like to keep it to a tight enough hour, what with things to be done later on for myself. And I'm sure yourselves. We'll start, Karl, with yourself, just having a quick look at this Liverpool 11, unchanged from the last time. And I've already sort of mentioned nearly everybody who was involved. People won't be shocked to hear that the defence was the defence. It's nominally our best one, with Alisson as well. The midfield was the midfield that we'd have expected as well, and with no one arriving in to play that specialist six, with Curtis Jones out with some sort of a niggle, and with Endo, it would appear not in favour. It was going to be those three for sure, in some way, shape or form, but it looks like he likes Gravenberch in that more withdrawn role of the three. And to be fair, it does free up, it does free up Dom and Mac to do things progressively. Theoretically, I thought we were reliant a lot on Dom's engine, if we're being honest, to get us out of a few scrapes. And then we have Diaz, Jota and Salah as our front three today, with obviously the options on the bench of Gakpo and Núñez, alongside Joe Gomez on the bench today, which will be heartening for some people. And I was doing a lot of soul searching about this left-sided defender that we need. And I mean, we've seen Joe Gomez do very well at left back. We know he's a decent centre half. I guess if we were just going to be able to plug one gap, we could possibly leave that one on the long finger if Joe's hanging around and just address that midfield situation that we have. Kelleher is also making up the numbers there with Elliott, Tsimikas, Kwanzaa and Bradley, most of whom got a little bit of a run for themselves. It's a very strong looking squad, Karl, because nobody's really crocked bar Curtis.
Yeah, so obviously just the one alteration, it was a difference in defence with Konate starting over Kwanzaa from last week. But generally, by and large, like you say, it's the expected 11 when people are fit at the minute. I would probably rail very slightly against that. I know it's only going to be a small niggle knock or whatever, but the fact that Jones picks up these quite often, I feel, even though it doesn't look like it in today's squad because we still had 2 midfield subs on the bench, I feel like the midfield is lacking because only with the one injury, you're suddenly looking at Endo and Jones basically being our 2 alternatives there. And obviously when Elliott has come on today, he's been a forward option rather than a midfield option. So I do definitely feel like we are a little undercooked there in that area of the pitch, numbers wise. But whether that means another youngster is going to get a little bit of game time, or there's something else in mind in terms of changes of positions for certain personnel, if we do require an extra midfield body, that's something for future games and weeks, if not the next coming week in a more literal and direct sense. But I'm pretty much fine with exactly how this team lined up. Like we're seeing the very structure, let's say, within these 11 players. Like it's very easy to identify what we want different people to do, whether they're the long-term people there now or not, whether it's people coming off the bench who we think will be here long-term and have a bigger role to play in future or not. You can still see what it is that Slot wants from them, and from that probably how we can progress and improve as the season goes on.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to hearing both from yourself and Dave as the season goes on about exactly what you are seeing in terms of the expectations from different players. Because like I said, little sort of warning signals going off in the back of my head a few times when I was just tracking where exactly Trent was on the pitch after having thought he was pretty much more traditionally placed in the previous outing. So it's going to be interesting to see that for sure. And then, of course, there's the ongoing questions around how we adapt and how individuals adapt to whatever system Slot is trying. Dave, I'm sure you'll probably have your tuppence worth to say about the Liverpool team. If you think it can be handled during the match analysis, that's fine. If not, have a word here first before I get a quick word from you on Brentford and what Thomas Frank was hoping for as opposed to what he got. They went with Flecken, Rorslev, Collins, Pinnock and Ayer. They had Lewis Potter, they had Norgard, Janelt, Jensen, Mbuemo and Vissa. And quite a few of their subs came on. Schade came on, Carvalho came on. The other ex-Red didn't in Vandenberg, but they also got Damsgaard on the park at one stage and Onyeka as well. Talk to me a little bit about them, what we saw from them today, because people tend to have a quite high opinion of them. I think I heard the quote or the stat being quoted there by Drury that I think it's an average of 48 points over their 3 seasons they've had in the Premier League, which is, safe as houses. What did you make of them today, and was it as good or around exactly what you were expecting?
Yep, that's who you think it is. The Grimace mug, the Hello Kitty keychain, Barbie herself. For a limited time, your favorite McDonald's collectibles filled with memories and magic are now on collectible cups. Get 1 of 6 when you order a collector's meal at McDonald's with your choice of a Big Mac or 10-piece McNuggets. Come get your cup while you still can. At participating McDonald's for a limited time while supplies last.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN
makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit libertyshield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I mean, the thing with them, myself and Karl have talked about it a few times, is like there's just a feeling of a bit of staleness around them because you've got a lot of the same players that came up with them, and the ones they've brought in haven't necessarily done that well. Like in that starting 11, you've got 6 players that were playing for them when they were in the Championship. Now, Roerslev wasn't the starter, but Pinnock, Jensen, Norgard, Janelt and Mbomo were. Of the players they've signed, like Ayer is a good player. Last week at left back, he looked absolutely hopeless against Palace, and then today he looked like a Nordic Maldini for large chunks of the game.
Yeah,
Nathan, but he's been injury prone since he's been there. Nathan Collins had an uneven season last year. I'm not sold on the keeper, though he made one great save today from Diaz. Wissa's been excellent since they bought him, and I would argue of the players they've signed for over 8 million since getting promoted, he's the only one you could say without question has been a success. There's others that have been good, but injuries have kind of held them up. And Lewis Potter's a young player they brought in from Hull, who has been very hit and miss, and a lot more missed than hit. But I think today, the one surprise I had in the starting 11 was Lewis Potter over Kevin Schade, but quite clearly it was the off-ball work that he wanted him in there for tracking Trent, for helping double up on Mo, stuff like that. And to his credit, he did put in a shift. A little bit surprised to see them go with more of a traditional 4-4-2. Under Thomas Frank, they've largely played either a 3-5-2 or a 4-3-3. Generally, in away games against the Big Six, they've always gone with the back three. So I did wonder if we'd see him do that today. But I suppose when you factor in both of the starting fullbacks, who are actually the only real fullbacks that they have at that club, are out injured, it was going to be hard for them without having to use like Lewis Potter as a wing back. So it probably makes a bit of sense that they went the way they went. Very clear plan. Let's put 8 behind the ball and try and use the pace of Wissa and Mbomo to hurt Liverpool in behind, which is a very logical tactical plan. The issue for them was we have centre-backs who are both 6'4", much bigger, much stronger than their 2 5'8", 5'9" forwards, and every bit as quick. So they weren't able to take advantage of that. And I also thought, just from a defensive point of view, because they tried to feed Lewis Potter and get both him and Wissa drifting out onto that left to cause Trent some trouble. I thought that's the first time in over 2 years where Trent defensively has had 2 strong defensive outings. Like, I know what you were saying earlier about there was times he was drifting into midfield and, wasn't in position, but we were reallocating people across. Robbo was staying a bit deeper, which allowed Virgil to play more centrally and Ibu to cover across. The tweak in Robbo's positioning is allowing Trent to do a bit more in midfield without us being as open defensively as we were last year. When we'd see Trent in midfield, you'd look for Robbo and he'd largely be playing left wing, and it would just be Virgil and Ibu at the back. With this time around, it's generally staying as a 3 if Trent drifts into that midfield position. So I thought we were able to shut down what they were trying to do. I thought we limited how influential Jensen can be, because he's probably the best ball player they have in the middle of the park from a creative point of view. Like, Janelt was barely in the game. He's another decent ball player. Norgard, once he got the yellow card, he couldn't be as aggressive in his challenging. and that hurt them a little bit too. So I thought their tactical plan made sense. I think they've got, like, we'd all agree Thomas Frank's a good manager who's done very well there. Like, anytime you can get a team promoted without spending ludicrous amounts, come into the Premier League and survive 3 seasons, like, regardless of anything else, that's a runaway success. Like, there's not many teams that happens with, where they come up and just very comfortably adapt to the level and become, a mid-table team easily enough. Last season, they took a drop-off, but they had a lot of injuries. Tony missed half the season, etc., etc. So it was probably a little bit closer to the relegation zone than they would have liked to have been. But, like, being realistic, they haven't really been in any relegation trouble in the 3 years they've been up, which, again, very, very rare to see that. Like, we look at Brighton when they come up, they scraped by to stay up the first or second year. Leicester, when they came up the first time and then obviously went on to win the league, but they barely survived that first year as well. Most of the teams are gone back down in 3 years unless they have a huge amount of money behind them, like, say, Aston Villa. But even with Villa, they barely survived their first season back. Brentford aren't spending massive money, and yet Frank continually just is able to... It's almost Roy Hodgson-esque in the fact that you can be certain he'll get a certain amount of points and they'll be fairly safe with 5-6 games to go. And I do think that's impressive. But like I said, I do think there's a little bit of staleness there. And when that many players come in and don't hit, I do always think you kind of have to look at the manager and ask, is he using them properly? Should he maybe make some changes tactically? Because what gets me is we kind of think of Brentford as like a hard-working team, a team that's, really well set up, really solid. They've got a couple of ways that they score goals, balls into the channel for Mbeumo or Wissa, longer balls up to Tony and then people run off them, or set pieces. And yet, when we saw them in the Championship, they were playing some absolutely stunning football. The type of football that he was playing with them in the Championship was similar enough to what we're seeing Liverpool play now in the final third. Quick movement, quick interplay, the ball pinging about, doing the work for them, and players flooding the box and getting opportunities. We haven't seen him do that, but we know he has it in his locker. And I do wonder if maybe they might put some pressure on him to maybe change the style a little bit, be a little bit more adventurous, or else they might have to look to make a change at some point. But credit to them, they came, they worked hard, they didn't get walloped, they weren't under any threat of getting walloped, and 2-0 flatters them a little bit, I think, but at the same time, 3 was probably the max we were going to get, given how the game played out. I had predicted 4, but they were stronger defensively than I thought they'd be.
Yeah, well, I think when we sort of run the rule over all the chances created by the Reds, 4, I think, would actually have been fair. I could be wrong about that, but it's good to be able to talk about a game afterwards, which was refereed by Stuart Little Atwell, and not have to mention him at all, despite the fact that he was quite card happy. It didn't necessarily, there was nothing really that we had to talk about. I would really relish a season where we don't have to talk about referees much, so I wanted to flag that up early. And Karl, if you and I look at the first half, and, ironically, the reason I want to get into the match as quickly as possible in a show is that there are quite a few incidents, second half in particular, that would be worthy of a little bit of chat or analysis. But ironically, the first 10, 12 minutes of that first half, it was a kind of a nothing period in terms of anything of note being created. We looked comfortable, they looked reasonably comfortable, nothing really happened. There was no real chance as such until there was. And the goal, when it comes on 12 minutes, we start with a bang here, Karl, from Luis Diaz, actually comes from Liverpool having to defend a corner, which Ibu Konate wins, if not with the most decisive contact, with a very decisive intervention. It's not the cleanest of contacts, I mean. The ball breaks to Mo Salah, who gets involved in a kind of 50-50 challenge. His strength, which we saw all throughout the match, and it's great to see that back. If he doesn't necessarily have the exploding pace that he once had. He still does know how to roll a fella or use his body brilliantly. In fact, I think he gets punished for how strong he is. But he challenges for the ball. The ball breaks to Jota, who carries, and as he drifts right, as he attacks the goal, Luis Diaz drifts across to the left ahead of him, and the pass from Jota to Diaz is absolute perfection. Diaz bears down on goal again, drifting slightly left as he does so, and as he's approaching the goal, about 10, 12 yards out, he decides to hit at the near post with his left foot, with power, and the ball is rustling in the net thereafter. It's absolutely glorious in terms of a picture book counter-attack goal. I thought it would be really, really silly to underrate Jota's contribution. The pass, the run, everything was perfect. You could say that the finish was perhaps slightly fortunate in terms of the way it went, but again, I think that would be harsh. He knew what he was doing. He was aiming for the nearest post and he blasted it and it went home. So credit to Luis Diaz. And again, a super run by that kid. As Dave said earlier on, almost everything he did had that sort of bang of certainty and surety about it. A lovely way to begin Arne Slot's first game at Anfield with a goal in the opening 12 minutes of that quality, Karl.
Yeah, it was really well taken goal, like you say. I think the manner of it was almost reminiscent of, should we say, peak chaotic Klopp, where we were probably more dangerous off opponents' corners than we were off our own, just because we had that ability to just really burst forward. While it was unfolding, the one that was in my mind was, I think it was against West Ham, and Oxlade-Chamberlain was involved, and I can't 100% remember how that one ended up, but several goals around that time where we scored off opponents' corners, and this was similar. Set piece, really fast counter, good first release as well. I think it was it Salah on the edge of the box, he said, which was quite an important little touch and turn. And then, like you say, Jota, really good timing. We've seen with Jota a lot of times when he is in that sort of final third position and needs to make that final pass, as good as he is in the finish, his weight of pass, I would say, is not always his strongest asset, but that one was great. And Diaz was very, very good today on the run. Like, all of his gathering of the ball at pace was good. His ability to move away with the first touch was good. His end product was pretty much good all the way through. And like you say, I don't really care that it was sort of central. It was the ball was going where he was putting it, and it was hit hard enough that the keeper wasn't stopping it unless it happened to be straight at his face, which has also happened to Liverpool plenty of times, let's be honest. So thankfully this one wasn't. Like you say, it was not loads had gone on before that. I think it was like the second shot for us that we'd had in the game. So it was pleasing to get that sort of opening without having to sort of struggle and really graft to just create anything of note and sort of go 20, 30 minutes with loads of possession, loads of territory, but not really anything in the way of clear chances or clear danger being created against the other team and such. We didn't have to necessarily absolutely beg for a chance just to fall our way 3 yards out to find a first goal of the game, basically, which is, again, quite a change for us of the last few months.
Unless I'm mistaken, Flecken actually does save it with his face later on in this game. I'm pretty sure that's what happens. We'll get to that. And because we're kind of cheating and starting 12 minutes in with the first thing of note, because, like, you know, that shot that you're alluding to was a blocked one and, you know, may or may not have troubled anybody. I'd like to maybe just ball on through the rest of the moments of note in the first half, because it's very different to the second, where we'll be stopping and starting between the three of us quite a bit. And then, Dave, I'll get your take overall on the first half, if there's anything you want to add or subtract or whatever. We did sort of, it's not like the goal led to us having our tails up and absolutely dominating, but it was kind of the catalyst for Liverpool to look reasonably confident. On 18 minutes, some 6 minutes after the goal, there was a beautiful ball by Trent. Robbo plays a 1-2 with Luis Diaz and has a shot at the near post, which is well saved by the keeper. I thought at the time, Robbo, you should have crossed. You know, we all know what your shooting's like. But to be fair to the lad, there wasn't a whole lot for him to aim at in the box, so we get the corner from it. Nothing accrues from that. Another beautiful move 2 minutes later on 20 with Mo Salah, Dom Szoboszlai, Trent, and then Mo again on the end of it, shooting over. On 28, Trent has a free kick that kind of curls past up and over the top left-hand corner after a little bit of kind of who's going to hit it nonsense. On 29 minutes, Dom Szoboszlai picks up the first yellow of the game, stopping a Vissa counter-attack, taking one for the team, really. On 31 minutes, Norgard flicked an Mbeumo free kick to Ali's left. It was well wide. On 34, Ibu with a great headed clearance from a very dangerous Roerslev cross led to a corner from them, from which they got nothing. And on 37, Gravenberch's in for the second yellow of the match, his second yellow for Liverpool. It's a wild tackle on Janssen. He's got 2 feet up in the air. It's kind of, on a different day, if there had been a different contact, you'd be a little bit worried about it. And, you know, I'm going to just say that apart from that, there's a yellow for Norgard. We have a lovely flowing move on 40, which ends with a Trent left-footed shot, deflected over another corner. And then on 42, great diagonal, picks out Potter, Lewis Potter on the left, who skins, I think it's Trent, and hits a decent dig that Ali has to get down smartly to and hold. It's their first shot on target of the match, and a late yellow for Jensen, who's late on McAllister. But I want to go back to this Gravenberch thing, because you don't have to be a genius to see that in your Twitter timeline, it appears now you have to be either ready to canonise Ryan Gravenberch as the second coming, or you have to say that he's absolutely awful, as opposed to having any sort of sensible conversation about him. And I'm very interested in just getting something from you on this, because maybe it's important to characterise what he does in the second half as well in terms of his overall performance. But that tackle is where I would see the only issue with Gravenberch in that position, in terms of his tackling. Quite literally, he does tend to be quite a bit wild, and obviously, if we're going to have to look at a fella developing in a position which I think is farcical for this club, honestly, then that's fine. We're going to have to look at it, and we have to watch him learn on the job. I guess that's fine. It's not fine, but I guess if that has to be the way, that has to be the way. But it is a thing that constantly worries about him. On the ball, I think we could see his progressive play is really good. I like the way he carries it. He does have a pass in him. He can have a shot. He's got all out those kind of things going for him. But the really important parts of the defensive midfielder comes down to that defensive word. What did you make of him overall? And in relation to his tackling, I wouldn't mind getting a take. If there's anything else you want to mention about those incidents, which are kind of almost nothing apart from the decent flowing football, please feel free to chat about them too.
Well, I think a lot of what you highlighted is kind of what I said in the beginning assessment. It was just quite a sloppy first half, I thought. Like, we were obviously fine technically, and we were more or less in control, possession and territory and all the rest of it, but it was a bit slow, and it was a bit lax, and it was a little bit slightly behind people and all of that kind of thing. And I think a lot of that is what led to the fouls and the yellow cards that we got. Szoboszlai's was, I think it was Robertson, played a pass just behind him. Then Szoboszlai's touch wasn't good, then he was chasing back, he fouled, and then again Gravenberch, there was a loose touch there beforehand, and he has to go in for the tackle. And I mean, like, literally by the numbers, Gravenberch first half made 4 tackles and he won 3 of them. But the one they didn't win was an overstretch. It was like late going in, obviously. It wasn't, like you say, good contact. It could have been marginally worse another time, another bit of pace to the tackle. But more than the actual technical things of like challenges and first-time passes and the rest of it, the big thing for that position and why we want a specialist and why you say that it should be farcical at this point in time is the knowledge and the positional play and the timing of when you move and where you protect your defence and how you protect the defence, and when you automatically know not just when the first ball's coming in that's going beyond you, but where you need to position yourself as a result of that, where it's likely to fall, where the second ball will be, where their runners from deep are going to be. And why would Gravenberch know how to do all that? Like, he's literally had like 2-3 weeks on this particular job. He played defensive mid for Bayern, as in a double pivot, maybe a couple of times from the start. Like, when he played against Ipswich last week, that was his second start in the league in central midfield since his last game for Ajax. Like, that's a ridiculous length of time that you're not playing in what is supposedly a primary position, and now you have to learn a new aspect of that position. So it's going to be really difficult for him. I'm not going to go into the debates of best thing ever or worst thing ever, because it's just ridiculous and it's pointless as far as I'm concerned. He is there at the minute, and unless somebody arrives in the next 5-6 days, he's probably going to be there for most of our league games this season, it seems. So you take what he's good at, you try to let him do that when the match situation allows for it, and the rest of the time, either you expect him to get very, very much better very quickly, which we're going to see the first proper test of that next weekend, or you have to make allowances for other players in other positions to do sort of supplementary jobs, if you like, supporting jobs, making sure that either someone is telling him positionally, which is probably Van Dijk behind him, making sure that someone is on hand to mop up second challenges or loose balls, which in theory is McAllister. But then if you want to release McAllister to play further forward, all of these things just go into trying to find the best balance of the team. And I think so far, early evidence, it's okay. It's not perfect or ideal. Like you said, we shouldn't necessarily have to do that, but I think the fixture list has been marginally kind to us that way, in that we just happen to need to deal with this position.
Yeah, it's a very interesting take. Dave, I want to give you a chance to talk about the first half. So I'm very aware that I bowled past it and through it there without allowing you to have any input. So anything you want to mention there? We can take up the Gravenberg chat later on if you want, because it will come up in the second half, or anything you want to mention at all.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.